Hi, my name is Rachel Nelson, and I'm the Animal Care Supervisor at Pacific Science Center. To me, being a scientist means that when I see a problem, particularly with the animals that I'm taking care of, I make a hypothesis, gather my data, and then find an answer to hopefully make that animal feel better. I would say that I do identify as a scientist, but that wasn't always how I felt. When I first started in the animal care field as an animal keeper, I didn't really see myself as a scientist, but the more I really thought about it and thought about what I was doing every day, I actually realized that I was then and I am now a scientist. In my current position, I take care of the kaleidoscope of butterflies that live in our tropical butterfly house, which is really a way to say that we have lots of different types of butterflies that live in our exhibit. I also take care of all of the animals in our Tidepool touch tank. So I'm responsible for safely collecting those animals, making sure their habitat and their water is healthy and safe for them and gives them everything they need. Some of the skills that I use on a daily basis are things like recognizing patterns. I'm looking at what they're doing every day, what they eat, how they're acting, and that helps me know what their normal is. And so when I see a break in these patterns, I usually get clued in that something might be wrong and I need to go investigate. Another skill that I heavily rely on is teamwork. I can't do this job alone. I have a team that I work with every day that do all kinds of things with me. One of the teams that I work with is our horticulture team, and they take care of all of the plants that my butterflies use. We have over 500 animals and more than 1,500 plants in the exhibit. So that's a lot to take care of. That teamwork actually extends past the team that I work with here at the Science Center. Beyond my team here, I get to work with a network of keepers across the country who also take care of Tidepool animals and butterflies. And what we're doing is constantly using each other as resources to answer questions or solve problems that we might have. An incredible part of my job is actually that I work with Tidepool animals from the Puget Sound, the body of water directly west of Seattle. And that means that I get to introduce kids to the animals living right in their backyard and answer their questions about them in front of the animals. I get to talk about why these animals are so important to their ecosystem and how they can be protected as we battle things like climate change. Now I'm going to answer some questions from students on field trips to Pacific Science Center. Janelle and Cameron in the 5th grade ask, how did you catch these butterflies and where did they come from? So our butterflies are actually raised on big butterfly farms in the country of their origin. We don't actually capture any of these butterflies from the wild, but rather there are farms that are raising caterpillars, and when they turn into a chrysalis, they package them up and send them to exhibits like ours all around the world. What this does is make sure that we're actually not taking butterflies from the wild so that the populations out there can stay high in numbers. And this also helps us support small-scale farmers around the world who are also reintroducing more butterflies to the wild that they don't send to us. Sarah in the 2nd grade asks, how do butterflies use plants? Butterflies use plants for a lot of different reasons. So the first thing is that caterpillars eat the leaves of plants to grow incredibly fast before they become a chrysalis. Every butterfly has a certain plant that they eat as a caterpillar, which is the most important thing they use plants for. Additionally, butterflies use plants as shelter in bad weather to protect themselves from rain or high winds, or to even keep themselves safe from predators. Butterflies can blend in really well with leaves or the bark on trees and not be seen by animals who might want to eat them. Several students, including Eli, Jonah, and Theo in the 3rd grade, asked about the diets of the animals at Pacific Science Center. All of our animals eat diets here that closely match what they would in the wild. So for example, the butterflies in our tropical butterfly house drink nectar from the flowers that our horticulture team grows. They also drink juice from fruit that we place throughout the exhibit because it gives them a lot of sugar and energy. Now, the Tidepool is a different one. We have to actually go buy all of the food. We buy it just from the grocery store that you and I would shop from. And we make sure that we're hand feeding every single animal in the Tidepool. And what this does is it allows us to make sure that none of the animals are getting their food taken by another animal. And it also just makes sure that we have eyes on the animal every day and that their behavior is okay. Brian in the 3rd grade asks, what kind of habitats do the animals live in? How do you make a habitat? Many animals have adaptations that help them survive in their habitats in the wild, so we want to make sure that our habitats here are as close to that as possible. So the animals at Pacific Science Center live in exhibits that closely replicate or match what their environments would be like in the wild. So we want to make sure that their habitat is the right temperature for them, offers a good shelter or a place to hide to make them comfortable when they need it. Most importantly, we want to make sure that they can stay safely contained in their habitat, because a lot of the animals wouldn't do well if they got out here in Seattle. Gunnar in the 3rd grade asks, what are the rarest or most exotic animals you've worked with? I feel really lucky that I've actually gotten to work with a lot of my dream species, including tigers, lions, Komodo dragons, and even naked mole rats. I think that one of the most rare animals I've gotten to work with is actually the spotted turtle found in the eastern part of the United States. And these turtles have been taken illegally from the wild for the last few years and are now classified as endangered. When I was working with a zoo, my team actually got to nurse these turtles back to health and reintroduce them to their habitat in the wild, which was extremely rewarding. One more question that I always get is, how do I get your job? And the answer is actually really simple. It's just go for it. Start putting your name out there, start taking every opportunity you can to work with an animal. Growing up, I was really lucky to have a mom specifically who really fostered my excitement for animals. So I offered to watch every class pet that we ever had over the summer. I volunteered at a horse ranch. I fostered dogs throughout high school and college. Essentially, I took any chance I could get to work with an animal. And so after that, I just started taking any internship or volunteer job that I could with exotic animals. It's definitely one of the most rewarding jobs that I've ever had, and getting to share the importance of these animals and the ecosystem that they live in is such a rewarding experience. At the end of the day, the most important thing is the animal's happiness and well-being. Thank you for joining me today, and don't forget to stay curious.